Let's go, and I think this is going to be one of my greatest words ever. St. Matthew chapter 20. St. Matthew chapter 20. We're going to read verses 1 through, or I'll read, and you can follow verses 1 through 13. St. Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 13. For the kingdom of heaven is like unto a man that is a householder, which went out early in the morning to hire laborers in his vineyard. And when he had agreed with the laborers for a penny a day, he sent them into his vineyard. And he went out about the third hour and saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and said unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right I will give you. And they went their way. Again he went out about the 6th and 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour he went out, and found others standing idle, and said unto them, Why stand ye here all the day idle? They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He said unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that ye shall receive. So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard said unto his steward, Call the laborers, and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first. And when they came that were hired about the 11th hour, they received every man a penny. But when the first came, they supposed that they should have received more, and they likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house, saying, These last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst thou not agree with me for a penny? I like to hang my hat on St. Matthew chapter 20, verse 12, saying, These last, talking about what the murmurers were saying, have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and the heat of the day. For a few minutes on this Sunday morning, I'd like to share from this subject. Say this with me: the kingdom needs clutch performers. The kingdom needs clutch performance. And the rest of it is the 11th hour church is still hiring. Say that with me. The 11th hour church is still hiring. Saints, this text comes from a parable called the workers in the vineyard. A parable is the way that Jesus espoused kingdom truths in the form of a story. This parable details the call of a wealthy householder who needs laborers for his vineyard. A denarius, when he said a penny, let me tell you what that was in that day. A penny was similar to denarius, which was basically the wages for a day's work in the first century. He called the first set of laborers, per the text, at 6 a.m., and named what he would pay them. He said he'd pay them a penny for a day's work. Then the householder decided to go out into the marketplace seeking workers in the third hour, which was about 9 a.m. But he promised to pay the third hour workers as such. Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right I will give you. And they went their way. The wealthy householder went out seeking to hire again in the 6th hour, which was about 12 noon. He did the same at the 9th hour, which was about 3 p.m. Then he reaches the workers who are the heart of our text today. In St. Matthew 20th chapter, verses 6 and 7. And he said, And about the 11th hour he went out, and found others standing idle, and said unto them, Why stand ye here all the day idle? They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He said unto them, Go ye also in the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall ye receive. This householder, which is a type of Christ, called out to those who were still standing idle at the 11th hour, which was about 5 p.m. He asked them, Why stand ye here all the day idle? Of course, they said that no man had hired them. The householder told him to go also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that ye shall receive. Now, my brothers and my sisters in Christ, these last people hired at the 11th hour were hired at 5 p.m. with 6 p.m. being quitting time. When the horn went off for the day, the householder moved a little differently than what we would expect. In St. Matthew chapter 20, verses 8 through 12, this payday wasn't a typical one where the bird had flown, or it was one of those typical, it wasn't one of the typical direct deposits that one would expect. In verse 8 it says, So when even was come, the Lord of the vineyard said unto his stewards, Call the laborers and give them their hire, beginning from the last unto the first. And when they came, they that were hired about the 11th hour, they received every man a penny. But when the first came, they supposed that they should have received more, and they likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house, saying, These last these last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didn't thou not agree with me for a penny? When the evening was come, and as the end of the day presented itself, the householder paid those who were hired last first. Now, we often say about our people that we the last ones hired and the first ones fired. But how about this one? These folks were last ones hired, but they are the first ones paid. How y'all like that? The first ones that were paid. They were hired last and they were paid first. So it says, when the 11th hour workers were come, they received every man a penny. So when the first workers came, who were hired at about 6 a.m., couldn't understand how those who were hired at 5 p.m. got what the householder had promised them. Since the householder promised the 11th hour, the first hour workers first. I would guess that those who were hired first found out about it, and I thought, and they probably heard when they were talking about their paychecks, well, they got a penny, I'm going to get about 5, I'm going to get about 10, I'm going to get about 15. They thought that they had popped off. You know how people talk about their check. They said, if that joker got that, I know I'm going to get paid. And they thought that they received so much more. Saints, this is where this thing popped off. Those first hour workers were ready to go in on the householder. It says this in verse 10 through 13, but when the first came, they supposed that they would have received more, and they likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house, saying, These last have wrought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and heat of the day. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst thou not agree with me for a penny? These first workers told the household, we've been out here working in the heat of the day, and you're going to pay these 1 hour workers the same as you paid us. The householder answered one of them, said, Friend, again, I do thee no wrong. Did thou not agree with me for a penny? The householder was saying in 21st century urban vernacular, don't be hating on what I do with mine. And I can do whatever I want with mine. The householder kept his end of the agreement that he had made with the first workers to pay them a penny for a day's work. His only promise to the workers at the 3rd hour, the 6th hour, the 9th hour and the 11th hour was that whatsoever is right, they will receive. This didn't go down like reason would have it. The householder did what he willed to do, to whom he willed to do it for, and that was that. I guess that this was probably one of the first times that being blessed out of turn was made a literal thing. Just like the householder, God wants to bless a good amount of us out of turn. If you ever been blessed out of turn, you ought to praise God right now. You wasn't number one, you wasn't number two. Somehow you somewhere at the back of the line, and then that line flips around and goes the other way, and all of a sudden you the first. God has the power to bless us out of turn. But this householder kept decrying in St. Matthew 20th chapter, verses 13 through 16. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong, that thou not agree with me for a penny. Take that thine is and go thy way. I will give unto this last even as unto thee. Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with my own? Is thine eye evil because I am good? So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Okay, that's enough talking about this parable in the past tense. Let's bring this parable to the present. Saints, I believe that the kingdom is in need of clutch performers. The kingdom needs those who can perform kingdom work in crisis times and in what seems to be end times. We know that we're living in perilous times, and we see evil abounding every day in a somewhat new way. Our God, much like the householder in this text, is looking for workers in his vineyard. The harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. There's opportunity because there's always another soul to bless. There's opportunity because there's always another person to serve. There's opportunity because there's another individual to empower. There's a whole lot of work out here, but where are the laborers? I was sitting around the other day just thinking on the other day how the enemy can throw the stewardships of the talents that God has endowed us with right back into our faces. The enemy will play with our minds and tell us where we should have been, what we should have done by now, and what gifts, talents, and time that we've already wasted. I gotta say ouch on that one. But God told me just the other day that regardless of how haphazard you have been, your stewardship has been, he said, Steve, be glad that you still have the ability to finish strong. There's so little that I can do to change what's already passed, but I can still do my best to finish strong. Look at someone and tell them to finish strong, finish strong. Saints, it ain't over yet. We've come too far. We've paid too great a price. It's too late in the hour for us to compromise and turn back now. Every day that we open our eyes, we have another chance to not only see new mercies, but we have more time to tear the enemy's kingdom down. Saints, any sports coach will want his best team on the court in the final minutes of a close game. These sports coaches are always looking to lean on their players who can come through in the clutch. These coaches could care less who's on the floor when the team is up by 50 points. They will even give a jersey to the towel boy, to the water boy, and even to the team trainer, and put them in the game when the team is up by 50 points. What damage can they do if I put them in is the question the coach has to ask himself, because our team's already up by 50 points. However, in the final moments of a close game, please know that the towel boy, the water boy, the team trainer, and even some of the lesser players know that they won't be anywhere but on that Joe Pine in the clutch. That's what we used to call the bench. Get on that Joe Pine in the clutch. Saints, in the kingdom, we're now moving in a clutch moment where we need more clutch performers. Some of us are being called to the kingdom for such a time as this. But our kingdom calls were answered later than so many other members of the team. God's calling some of us to 1 hour exploits. God's going to reward some of us for doing what he calls and what we're going to do in less time. The last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Don't despise the timing of your call, because the kingdom's team still has spots open for clutch performers. The 11th hour church is still hiring. Look at somebody across the room, tell them they're still hiring. They're still hiring. I know you walked into that place, y'all got about application, and they still hiring. They still hiring. This late in the day, with 2023, where it seems like we're hell bent on going to hell itself, God's team is still hiring in this moment. God has the ability to reward those who haven't even broke a sweat, yet to reap in a single hour when it took someone else all day to reap. God's about to accelerate some things. Say that God's about to accelerate some things. God's acceleration of things is coming. Stop sitting here around idle, my brothers and my sisters in Christ. God still has a work for each of us to do. God's calling some of us at the 11th hour, just like the householder did to these 11th hour workers. Our 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. pay will be the same as those who went to work at 6 a.m. Stop arguing so much about how fair things are, because as far as God is concerned, favor ain't fair. Say that with me, favor ain't fair. God paid these workers the same amount, even though they had suffered less sweat. We're going to get in an hour the same as those who labored in the heat of the day. Clutch performers are paid well. They get the same pay for less effort. Let's say that again. The same pay for less effort. Is there anyone in the house on today who would like to be a clutch performer? Time is winding up. The enemy knows that his time is short. This isn't fainting time. I know that most of God's team is already on the floor and playing the game, but there's still room at the cross and a spot on the kingdom team for you. If you join this team, God won't only provide you with a uniform, but God will give you some playing time, since time is winding up. Stop that pity party of yours on what you should have done with the time, resources, health, and mindset that you once had. Because there's still an impact for the kingdom's sake that you can still make. You may get attacked from some first hour workers because they won't like what God is doing with you in less time. Here they are with the flowers from Bishop Mason's funeral that they actually attended in person, and here you are getting the same reward that they got in much less time. Child of God, my brothers and sisters, the kingdom needs clutch performers. Some will have punched the clock before you, but your pay will be the same. Come on and join this club, be a clutch performer on this team. I know that they're going to look at their paycheck and they're going to look at that time clock and say, I got more hours on the clock. How is little old you at the last minute going to come in here and try to make the same thing that I make? The kingdom needs clutch performers. The 11th hour church is hiring. I got the 11th hour church. I was going to go and let y'all think that I just slept in Nahum and woke up in Habakkuk and just came up with that on my own. But I heard about the 11th hour church from Bishop Earl Polk about 20 years ago. Bishop Earl Polk died in dishonor, but he had built one of the first mega churches in the country. Deborah and I went there one Sunday in Atlanta. It's now the home of Greater Travelers Rest, where E. Dewey Smith pastors. But Bishop Polk, his sin at the end was that he had a nephew who he was putting off as his nephew, and that nephew was really his son. So people remember the dishonor that he had, and that killed his ministry at the end, but he still thought this thing up about the 11th hour church. I'm telling you that God puts his treasure in earthen vessels. You can be brilliant, but it still has to go in one of these earth suits. This earth suit whose eyes look at that short skirt. This earth suit that look at the muscles on somebody else's body. This earth suit that gets into stuff that sins before you even know what you've done. So I'm just telling you that brilliance can come at all types of times. We judge far too quick, and we judge too swiftly. Saints of God, I'm telling you on this morning, the 11th hour church is hiring. You thought that there ain't room for you, that you didn't let your 20s go by. And here you are, we're in your wonderful 20s and your tantalizing 30s and your feeling fine 40s. And here you are, now you're in your 50s or in your 60s or your sit down 70s or your aching 80s or your nostalgic 90s. You didn't let time slip up on you. But saints of God, I'm telling you that you can come in at the 11th hour. The 11th hour church is still hiring. You ain't gotta take no diagnostic test. You ain't gotta take no guys. You ain't gotta do one of these stupid personality tests, aptitude tests, and every other test that you can have nowadays trying to get a job. God says right now, the kingdom suffereth violence, but the violence take it by force. Saints of God, on this morning, the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. All you gotta do is come. The 11th hour church is hiring. It's hiring right now. Come on now, we have anybody want to sign up for this team? Do you want to work any extra hours? You thought your life was over. You said I'm 50-some years old. The enemy was talking in your head, because that's where the enemy has his strongholds. It's right between your ears. He'll tell you, girl, you 56. You didn't let life pass you. You didn't let your best days come. I told you about the lady who told me that she wasn't gonna buy the grave. I ain't telling you this, Mother Bell, next to her husband. And she told me, I said, Miss Jones, how come you ain't buying the grave next to your husband? And Miss Jones said, Steve, I might still get married. I said, Miss Jones, you 70-some years old, and you still crazy. And ain't nobody married no 70-year-old lady. That's crazy. Well, Miss Jones knew something that I didn't know. Miss Jones got a boo, and Miss Jones got a ring. Miss Jones then got married. Miss Jones was just like Sugar Avery. She said, I's married now. Saints of God, on this morning, I'm telling you, this 11th hour church is still hiring. They may have to be Crips, they may have to be Bloods, they may have to be Devil Mars, they may have to be Trula Mafia. Saints of God, I know you're trying to figure out how my pastor knows the sets that are out there. But whether they GDs, Vice Lords, Crips or Bloods, Saints, God still calling them. In the 11th hour church, they gonna do more in 1 hour. There's some that's been saints since Moses was walking around on the earth. I know you met Moses 4 times. You sat at the Last Supper, but God has his right to do, Lord, what he wills with those who come. God's calling you to come right there, whatever position, with your little money, with your little strength, with your up in age, with your aching bones. God's calling you to this moment. Saints of God, if you're proud of being last days, God didn't trust all those folks in Newport. He didn't trust those folks in Southwoods. He didn't trust those folks at Memorial Park. He didn't trust those folks at Calvary or Forest Hill to be here in this moment. He called you to the kingdom for such a time as this. Come on now, if you're proud to be a member of the 11th Hour Church, God's about to pay you, and you're going to look at your check twice. You turned your car around when your check was short. You didn't know whether to turn it around when them jokers paid you too much. Here they are. You done worked 10 hours and they done paid you for 60. The inner part of you wants to stay a saint and go to payroll and tell them y'all made a mistake. But most of us tell payroll, you just can't catch me on the back end. You're gonna have to come back and take that on another week. But guess what? When God decides to pay, ain't nobody repossessing. In that 1 hour, in that 11th hour, God's about to bless your substance. God's about to give you things that eyes haven't seen, nor ears heard, nor entered into the hearts of men. The great things that God has prepared for them who love Him. Saints of God, I had a cat behind me, and I saw the Rolls-Royce emblem. And I know nice cars, but I saw the Rolls-Royce emblem. I was waiting for the cat to pass me, and he had this snow white Rolls-Royce, and I just knew it was the Rolls-Royce car. But this joker passed me, and he driving the Rolls-Royce truck. I ain't never seen the Rolls-Royce truck. I walk on, if you go to Mercedes Collierville, if you want to have a dealership where you go and dream, they got every nice car you never thought of right there on the floor. Go in there and touch it and feel it. Tap, tap, tap on it. Sit behind the wheel. See yourself in another environment. But this cat rolling in a Rolls-Royce truck. I'm telling you that God's got some minutes. God's got some moments for some of us to do the same thing. You were born in poverty. You've struggled time after time. You wrestled Peter to pay Paul and skip John. You've had all types of money problems, but God's about to bless you and give you something that there won't be room enough to receive. Mercedes trucks, Rolls-Royce trucks, Audi trucks, God's got all of them for this 1 hour church. They've been in ministry since early in the morning. They've been burning up, working in the heat of the day. But God gonna call us in His last hour, in His last 1 hour. And God's gonna bless us like He never thought He could. I see bigger, I see better, I see greater, I see bolder. That's why God died. He died to destroy the works of the devil. He died to save you and me. He died to the veil of the temple was rent from the top to the bottom. He died until the Roman centurion said, surely this must be the Son of God. He died until the sun refused to shine. He died until the earth rocked and reeled. He died until the earth shook and shook. Saints of God, God's about to do it in 1 hour. I feel it in my bones. 59, 50 seconds, 59 minutes, 52 seconds, 59 minutes, 53 seconds, 59 minutes, 54 seconds, 59 minutes, 55 seconds, 59 minutes, 56 seconds, 59 minutes, 57 seconds, 59 minutes, 58 seconds, 59 minutes, 59 seconds, and there you are, that last hour, that last 60 minutes. God called you to this moment, and God's gonna bless you past your wildest dreams. I know what that third grade teacher, she told you that you ain't never amount to nothing, but God won't let her go home. She won't let her go to glory before she sees you pass her in traffic in that Rolls Royce truck. God's keeping some people here that's trashed your name, that put mud on your name. He's gonna keep them here long enough to see you come up. Saints of God, that 11th hour is when God's about to do it. If God's gonna do it in 1 hour, each of you should have a 1-minute praise that you're not scared to give him. Bring us in.